Hello, this is Mark Anderson. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Investor Mindset Secrets podcast. I'm the author of the book Forgotten Secrets of Passing On Generational Wealth, which is available on Amazon today. I also have a YouTube channel called Investor Mindset Secrets. So this is the inaugural episode of the Investor Mindset Secrets podcast. In this episode, I'm going to cover off what I feel is one of the most important areas that anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur needs to understand. We're going to cover off the investor mindset or the entrepreneurial mindset, and we're going to compare it versus the prevailing mindset out there in our culture today, which is the consumer mindset. So before we begin, let's talk a little bit about these two mindsets. Now, most people want to achieve some sort of goal or dream in their life, but they really don't know how to get there. And what ends up happening quite frequently is that they have small bursts of motivational energy. Maybe at the beginning of the year, they want to lose weight or they want to achieve some sort of goal. But then by the time July comes around, they burned out entirely. The consumer mindset is really focused on the short term, and it's not really focused on anything other than quick wins, emotional decision making, and short term comfort. Whereas the entrepreneurial mindset is really focused on long term success, long term gain. And then in this episode, I'm going to cover off 5 different areas where these two mindsets are distinctly different from each other. Now, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint presentation. You can check it out on my YouTube channel if you want to see the video of this, but I'm going to share a PowerPoint screen and cover off the 5 points via PowerPoint. So the first area where these two mindsets are vastly different from each other is in the area of perspective. The consumer mindset says, what do I get right now? It's focused on immediate gratification. It's focused on short-term wins and emotional decision making. That's why consumers tend to put a lot of effort up front on something, but then when the emotions fade, they can tend to wane off on whatever decision that they made. Consumers want to hit that easy button. They want that immediate gratification. They want to be able to plug something in, especially as entrepreneurs, and have it work instantly. They want to buy a program from somebody and then have it work overnight, and immediately they have $1 million in their bank account within a week. And sometimes, unfortunately, people promise those types of returns right away, but it's almost impossible to get there. It takes a lot of hard work, sacrifice, and discipline. And that's where the investor mindset says, what does this thing become over time? This mindset is focused on long-term payoff, is focused on growth over the long term, and the future impact of today's choices. And entrepreneurs, investors just don't plop down a couple of $1,000s on an entrepreneurial project or an entrepreneurial program. They're going to evaluate that opportunity within what they have existing in their business and see how it can fit. See where it pays off, where it can augment or help. If it's going to help them, then they'll invest in it. But if it's going to pull away from their core mission and from their core values, then they'll probably turn it down. But they evaluate it based on what does it become over time. The second area where these two mindsets are vastly different from each other is in the area of allocation of resources. So the consumer mindset is focused on spending money, time, and energy on feeling better in the moment. If you look at what people say and what they're actually doing, it's two different things. They say that they want to own their own business. 70% of the American workforce says that it wants to own its own business. But when you see how people are spending their time, they're spending between 4 to 6 hours a day on entertainment. And that's why they want to feel better in the moment, because they have this consumer mindset. Whereas the investor is going to allocate money, time, and energy to become better in the future. Every resource that you have has a purpose, not just a price. At some point in the future, we'll cover off the difference between an investor mindset and what traditional financial advice is going to give you. Traditional financial advice is going to be focused on the consumer mindset, as if the only thing in your life that mattered was how you spent your money. But that's not true. How you spend your time is going to determine how you spend your money. But I'll get into that more in a future episode. But suffice to say that investors have a purpose for every resource. It's not just how can I feel better in the moment. It's how can I use my resources to create something better for the future. And the third area where consumers and investors are different is in the area of purpose. Consumers chase comfort, convenience, and ease, and they avoid pressure as well as risk. Whereas the investor mindset chases purpose, calling, and results. People become entrepreneurs because they feel that God has a calling on their life and that they can serve these people, their clients, by becoming an entrepreneur rather than just working for an employer, working for a boss. They feel a purpose, they feel a calling, and so they go out there and venture into the marketplace so that they can help people achieve the results that they know that they can achieve. And they understand that pressure is a part of the progress. Also, risk is a part of the progress, but that's how you're going to have to grow. You can't just live in an easy chair and watch television 4 to 6 hours a day and expect to grow. That's not going to be any growth. It's going to be just the same static effort that you always have, and you're not going to see any results. In order to grow, you have to sacrifice, you have to be disciplined, and you have to put in the hard work. Now, the fourth area where these two mindsets are different is in the area of systems. Consumers, they react to life. They try to survive from going from one motivational sprint to another, but they lack structure and ultimately they burn out. See, the major thing that people make as a mistake is that they try to create accountability by using a calendar. But the problem with calendars is that they have no pressure and they have no accountability built into them. Let's say that you wanted to write a book and you said, okay, I'm going to devote 1 hour every Saturday to writing my book. Well, of course, that's not enough time to begin with, but let's say that's what your initial idea is. So you put it on a calendar and you're going to dedicate an hour to that. But then that Saturday comes and you might have something come up that you didn't anticipate, so you move it to the next Saturday, to the next Saturday, to the next Saturday, until weeks and months and even years go by and you've never worked on that project that you wanted to. It's because you lack structure. It's because you lack accountability. Whereas the investor mindset is going to build systems that create accountability, that will have consistency, and will create momentum even when the motivation isn't there. See, consumers and investors are both going to have days where they don't feel like doing it. But an investor has accountability built in to his systems, and they're going to not force you, but they're going to motivate you in order to do what you need to do. And then the fifth area, and this is where they're vastly different from each other, is in return on investment. The consumer bases all their decision making on one question: how much does this cost? But the investor mindset asks, what will this produce? It evaluates decisions based on the ROI, whether it's financial, emotional, or spiritual. Okay, so a consumer might look at an entrepreneurial program and say, ooh, it costs a couple of $1,000s. Let me buy that because I believe that this program can help me to achieve the success that I'm looking for. But because they're emotionally based, they will buy it and then they will spend their time on it for a little while, but then eventually they will burn out and that will be the end of it. Whereas an investor is going to buy that thinking, okay, this $2,000 program, I think, has the potential to help me create so much more than that. So you're thinking about the long term. What is this going to produce? How is this going to help me multiply my efforts in the marketplace? How is this going to multiply what we are producing right now? And it's very, very important. You have to think about the long-term impact of your decisions so that you can make the best decisions possible for your life and for your business. So subscribe to Investor Mindset Secrets, where we help you think like an investor in your everyday life.